Welcome, everyone, to take 2 of episode 2 of Jupiter's CROCK. My name is Matthew. I'm not even getting into the opening. Joining me tonight, hopefully, is Ronan, not on a delay.
I was not on a delay, all right? That was all you. All you.
Oh my god. And here in Nebraska with myself, Steve.
Yep, I'm here. I'm excited for Ronan's opinion on things 4 full seconds after we asked him a question about it.
Yep, and we've tried, dear listeners, we tried to record this about, 2 minutes ago, and I got an error message saying Ronan fucked it all up. So we are trying take
Literally,
2.
that's what the message said.
Yeah, it just said Ronan.
It did not
Ronan
say it on
fucked
my
it all.
end. It said that there was a random error. And, I think Matt is just projecting his technological failures onto me because
Now-
that is what narcissists do. That is what psychopaths do.
Here's the thing. I am Matt Nito. I fully agree with that. But I own up to my problems. You, sir, are the one who's not owning up to the fact that you fucked it up. If I fucked it up, I would just say I'm Matt Nito'd it. Let's try again. Regardless. Let's get into this, guys.
Unless you were plotting a bit, which is exactly what's happening right now.
I
call shenanigans, sir.
I am not intelligent enough to plan a bit.
Shenanigans have been declared. I just want the record to show shenanigans.
And it would be wonderful to talk about Spartacus now.
It would. We are on episode 2 of Gods of the Arena, the prequel series to Spartacus, Blood and Sand. And this is a show that we love quite a bit. So thank you for the listeners who have listened to the first episode. We are going to dive right into this second episode because, I won't spoil my feelings on this episode, but we'll turn it over to Master Explainer of the details of plot, the plot connoisseur, if you will, Mr. Steve.
Ploticus.
Yes.
Ploticus.
I'll start throwing that as my name in the Zencaster recording.
Ploticus.
Episode 2 is called Missio, and Missio is the Missio. I don't know how you pronounce it. It's the symbol that gladiators give to surrender and request mercy. That's going to become very relevant later on in the plot synopsis. It opens up. It's a week after Batiatus got his ass kicked by Varis and Tullius, and he is ready for revenge. So he's trying to plot a way to get around Varis to usurp the meeting that he is about to have with some famous Roman guy. Before that, good Salonius is out in the marketplace buying special wine that he is going to give to Batiatus. Good Salonius.
That's what everyone calls him.
Yeah.
It's true.
Because he's good.
His first name is Good. His last name is Salonius. So Mr. Salonius, he's buying wine for Batiatus, and Tullius interrupts him and says, hey, let me buy that wine for you because we got a deal to discuss. And Tullius's deal is, you are going to convince your friend Batiatus to sell me Ganicus. Otherwise, not only will Batiatus be barred from any future gladiator games, you will as well, which it didn't quite make sense to me because as far as I know, at this point, Salonius is not a part of any games. He doesn't have a ludus or whatever.
No, he has
he's
a
always
ludus.
had the ludus. Yeah,
he has a ludus, but he has not actually been able to get anybody in the games. And so this guy's basically saying, I'm going to bar you forever from the new arena and everything. You'll never be able to get somebody in.
Have we seen his ludus yet? Because I know he has people in the subsequent in season 1 of Spartacus. But at this point, I was confused. Like, is he already in the gladiator business? If so, why is he buddies with what I assume would be a rival gladiator person? But whatever. Good Salonius.
I think they're just friends. I just think they're good friends with each other.
They're just bros, going out doing, gladiator stuff. They're just bros,
They're both slumming it, right? Because they're those kind of ludus operators who wish that they could have a man in the games, right? And they keep getting sort of, looked over, passed over, however you want to phrase it, and then it's just kind of like they bonded as friends. Like, yeah, we both wish we could be in there and have some people in there, but that's why in episode 1, Salonius was actually happy for him when Ganicus was able to be in those games, because he's like, hey man, at least you got somebody in there. I don't got anybody in
Yeah,
there.
that makes sense. It's just it's a little confusing because we're seeing good Salonius rather than shitbag Salonius, who he becomes in the future.
Don't
Yes.
they all become shitbags?
Everyone is a shitbag to begin with, which is what we're gonna get to later on in this episode. Anyways, Batiatus
Crixus is not a
completely,
shitbag. You take
totally a
that back.
shitbag.
No.
Batiatus completely rejects, just absolutely out of hand rejects doing business with Tullius, and so he enacts a plan. But he is in such a shit mood that one of his new, they're not a gladiator yet, but one of his gladiator recruits is having like a very playful like gladiator bout with one of the other trainees. And he just kind of like laughingly throws up the Missio sign. And Batiatus says, send that fucking man to the mines. The house of Batiatus does not surrender.
Send that fucking slave to the mines!
Yeah, and the mines, we don't. We're like 2 years away in like real time before we would have seen the mines. Or I guess we would be 1 year away before we'd actually see the mines in the show. But even to these slaves, like the mines are known as like a fate worse than death. So this guy
Yeah.
is very upset. And we'll find out later on that the current Doctore, who is also Boba Fett and Jango Fett, is very, very upset about sending a man to the mines.
Well,
Anyways,
there's one thing small detail, but it's going to become a big detail, I think, and then maybe next episode that you kind of passed over. When good Salonius shows up with the wine, and Batiatus finds out that the wine is actually from Tullius or whatever, and gets pissed off. Before he's doing that, he's admiring all of these statues in the Ludus, and he's mentioning all of these great champions of Capua, but they were all gladiators from his father. Like his father sort of oversaw all these great gladiators. And you kind of find out here that Batiatus's real motivation is he wants to sort of like be better than his father, or at the very least be seen in the same light as his father by sort of being able to train and have his own champion. That's why he wants That's why he doesn't want to give up Ganicus, because he believes Ganicus can be champion of Capua, and he wants that sort of glory and honor for himself and not pass it along to sort of like, oh, you're not as good as your dad. Your dad had all these other great champions, and you're not as good.
yeah, I don't know. Ploticus didn't think that was very important.
Well,
So moving on.
should go to the fucking mines.
Batiatus hatches a plot. There is a man named Varis who is coming into town, and he is coming to the town for the express purpose of reviewing Vedius's gladiators for games that Varis is going to hold. Batiatus says, "Fuck that noise," and so he hatches a plan to lure Vedius away and then insert himself in Vedius's place. So he sends Asher, the guy that was going to go to the mines, and Asher's buddy, whose name I don't remember. And so they lure Vedius away. Indus, who is the mines guy, says, come follow me, and I will take you to where Varis is. And Vedius is an idiot and follows him. He gets his ass kicked. He gets pissed on by Asher's buddy, kind of reenacting the beatdown that Batiatus got in the previous episode. And then the Indus, the guy who was sentenced to the mines, he's like, yes, I don't have to go to the mines. I'm going to get to go back to gladiator training. And then Asher kills him at Batiatus's request because Vedius saw his face and could trace him back to Batiatus.
Beginning of Asher's downward spiral.
A lot of trends that have become important later in the show, they start here. This episode is the lot of first that happen later on down the line.
Yeah. And I don't want to spoil my review for this episode, but I will. I think this is the first great episode in chronological order, if we're going that way. The first
Yeah,
great episode
definitely.
of this show, because it's less focused. Like, see, the first episode was like, okay, we got to make sure every single one of these actresses gets naked and has a sex scene. We gotta we gotta make sure that's our priority. Let's give the people what they want right away. This one, we get some of that in there, but this one is more about, okay, we're setting up the story is going in motion now. How all these characters will eventually become what they
Yeah.
become in
And
Blood
this
and
is the
Sand
first
starts
time we
here.
get to see Batiatus scheme, which is what he's very
Yes.
good at. We'll
Yeah.
we'll, we'll learn in future
Yeah, yeah.
episodes.
This also
Something.
sets up the trend of sometimes when we see titties, it's not always a good thing. When you're kind of like, oh, this isn't right.
We'll get there.
Yeah, jeez.
Don't use the R word. We'll get slammed with the algorithm. Use SA. That's
Yeah,
that's the
yeah,
word that people need
yeah,
to
yeah,
say
yep,
on YouTube.
yep. Got it. 10-4. So
Thank you,
Everybody laughs at
Plodicus.
me.
Batiatus's gladiators beat down Vedius, and the deal that Asher and Indus, who is now dead, and Asher's friend made is that if this plan is successful, then they will get the mark of the Brotherhood without actually going through the process of becoming an actual gladiator, which comes back to bite several people in the ass later on.
Hmm.
But while Vedius is getting his ass kicked, Gaia and Xena run into Varis, who I swear is a young Bruce Campbell from the original Evil Dead, like time traveled to the early 2010s to play this role. But
They really do a good job of casting people with unique Roman faces in this show. It's like a Roman when you see them in this show, at least a Roman male, because they all have punchable faces and they look like total assholes that you're just like, oh, the goddamn Romans. You hate them when you first see them.
The
I thought this guy,
politicians
I thought
and the
this guy looked so much like Bruce Campbell that I actually went to look and see if they were related in some way.
Oh, I did. I never
I
got
mean,
Bruce Campbell from him.
yeah, I don't see that vibe. I mean, maybe if you
Well,
turn your
Plodicus
head
says you're
slightly.
dumb. Uh,
Plodicus
Gaia
agrees.
Gaia and Xena lure not Bruce Campbell's evil twin back to Batiatus's Ludus, and Batiatus kind of tricks Varys into viewing a fight between Ganicus and Crixus, and Varys eventually agrees to hire Ganicus for his games, but not before revealing himself as an absolute fucking creep and forcing Ganicus to have sex with the
Hold on,
wife
hold
of
on,
Oenomaus.
hold on, Plodicus. You're missing you're missing a lot of
I don't want this to
detail.
be in 2 hours episode.
We're only 12 minutes in. Detailicus is needed here. So there's we can't just gloss over the fight between Ganicus and Crixus,
I
because this
wasn't.
is
I was going to lead into later on as to how that affects Oenomaus.
okay. Go ahead, Plodicus. I'll step back and let you go through, do your thing. I apologize.
Thank you. I accept. So, creepy Bruce Campbell, not Bruce Campbell, forces Ganicus to have sex with Oenomaus' wife. It's incredibly uncomfortable, but that is what Varys is into.
While he's masturbating in front
Yes,
of them.
Jesus. Yep. He's beating it like it owes him money while watching Ganicus assault his best friend's wife because Spartacus, because Romans. Um, Ultimately, though, Varys agrees. Yes, Batiatus, I want your man Ganicus, and basically all the men in your ludus to come and fight in my games. And Batiatus is very thankful to Ganicus and Melita, but tells them, "Hey, you've elevated this house, but how about we never speak of this again?"
Well, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
Yeah.
Like there is a clear threat involved in that too. In his thanks, was like, oh yes, you like there is no. I understand what you did was rough, and you probably didn't like it. Give them wine or something. No, no, no. He thanks them and then threatens them to keep quiet.
Yeah, well,
yeah,
the big thing here is the power dynamic, right? Because during that sequence, you kind of realize. I mean, they say it multiple times throughout the show. And it's obvious when you think about it at all, but they are just slaves, And Batiatus even says in that scene with Roman Bruce Campbell, he's like, they're just slaves. They'll do whatever I ask them to. And multiple times throughout this, even when he goes after Boba Fett, he tells Boba Fett, you are just a slave. You are here to do what I want and what I command when I want. He tells Ganicus, he's like, hey, man, you got to go in here and display yourself for this guy and do whatever he wants.
Yeah,
And
Ganicus is easily the most important person in the house of Batiatus right
yep,
now, and Batiatus tells him, if Varis, not Bruce Campbell, tells you to suck his dick, you will savor every drop. Like,
yep,
Batiatus
Direct
does
quote.
not care.
yep. Until his balls go dry or something like that. And you just kind of realize, and as soon as you see like Melita in there, and when the Roman Bruce Campbell's like, no, 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 have sex with her right there, and you're just like, oh no,
It's
because
just so casual. Have him fuck this one.
yeah, 'cause they don't view them as people. They just view them as property to do with, for their own pleasure and everything like that. And that's what it was back then.
Yeah, let's
That is
explain slavery to the audience. I don't
yeah.
think they
How about
understand
we
it.
not?
The show does a really good job of depicting sort of the loss of humanity that even these people that the story, like the screenwriters are like, we're going to imbue Ganicus with humanity. We're going to imbue, like there's a great sequence with Ganicus and Anameus when Melita shows up, and she has a conversation with him earlier on in the episode. She's like, what are you going to do when, like, because they're like, hey, I want to fight. Ganicus is like, I want to fight Anameus in the arena. I want to see who's the better one. And they're kind of like, they're good friends, and they're just going, oh, I beat you, I beat you. And she's like, look, one of you is going to have to kill the other. What are you actually going to do when this happens? He's like, oh, I'm just going to fuck my way out of it. I guess I'll just have to do something like that. And then he gets stuck in this situation. And it's even weirder because it almost straddles that line where at a certain point she's almost like,
It's
okay,
very uncomfortable, but they
yeah,
both kind of get into it towards the end.
yeah, and then she's super guilty afterwards, and that's going to lead to more and more stuff as we go on. But yeah, it is a very awkward scene, and they keep cutting the close-ups of all like Xena and Batiatus and Roman Bruce Campbell and Gaia like licking their lips and watching this happen.
Intercut with scenes of violence, because while all this is going on,
Yes,
Anameus is having to fight Django Fett.
yeah, and
Well, we're
why?
not there yet. So that's the other kind of the other like side plot going on throughout this episode. While Batiatus is trying to trick Varys into having Batiatus supply people for his games, Doctore is very, very upset with Batiatus's decision towards Asher and Asher's buddy. Doctore is like incredulous that Batiatus is going to give these two people the mark of the brotherhood, um, because they haven't earned it. They didn't go through the actual process. And Doctore treats them like shit. And Asher's like, wait, is there not an oath that I'm supposed to recite? Doctore, Boba Fett's like, I'm not gonna have this fucked up any more than this, and just fucking brands him. Prior to this, Batiatus tells Doctore that basically, I'm tired of your shit. Uh, Crixus, or sorry, Onomaus did such a great job training up Crixus, because Crixus had a chance at beating Ganicus, like world's greatest gladiator.
Mm.
Crixus had a fighting chance after just a little bit of time working directly with Onomatus. So Batiatus is planning to just get rid of Doctore. I don't know what was going to happen to him, but he's going to make Onomaus the new Doctore that we see throughout the rest of the series. Current Doctore is very upset by this, and so he goes and picks a fight with Onomaus and forces Onomaus to kill him, in which Doctore is actually proud of him for doing so. I trained you well,
Well,
as
didn't
he's dying.
Batiatus fire him? Doesn't Batiatus tell Boba Fett like you're fucking done? Like
Yeah,
you're my
but then
you're
what
my
what
dad's
happens to him
man.
then? Like, is he just
I,
going to
I
be a,
think he
a
just
house slave then? Is he
I
going to be
think he just
killed?
becomes another gladiator. And I think that's part of the reason why Boba Fett was like Tamura Morrison is great in this role. Like he's so awesome. He's got this gnarly scar across his face, and he just has that look to him, like he's a badass. The opposite of Book of Boba Fett. But I think he was just kind of like, you're going to go back to being a regular gladiator, and he was going to lose all of his station and his status amongst all those dudes. And I think he antagonized um, Oenomaus into forcing the fight in order to kill him. He was either going to kill Oenomaus, where he'd still have to retain because there'd be nobody else left. Who is Batiatus going to choose at that point? If Oenomaus is dead, he's probably just going to be like, okay, I'm going to default. I have to stick with Boba Fett. Or Oenomaus was going to give him a glorious death in battle, where he could be like, I trained you well, and be on his way. That's how I saw it.
I
Yep.
saw it more since let me interrupt a kiss here. I saw it more as more or less he this was his way of making sure that Oenomaus could actually do the job, and maybe it's some kind of like a symbolic thing where it's like, okay, if you're going to become the new Doctore, you have to kill the old one, and that's why there was a smile as he forced him to finally kill him. It's like, okay, yeah, you're good enough to train other gladiators.
Yeah, possibly. I could be a little bit of everything.
I mean,
Honestly.
my take was Doctore went out there wanting to die to some extent at this point, but who knows? Like, hey, they left it open to interpretation, so good on the show for giving us something to talk about. But the end of the episode is all of these things coming together. Oenomaus has killed his mentor essentially. He's very upset about it. Ganicus and Melita are obviously very upset over the traumatic experience that they just suffered. Varys says,
Traumatic orgasm they both
yeah.
just experienced.
Varys commits to
It wasn't
hiring
me who said it. I just
Ganicus.
want that on the record. I didn't say
Shut
it.
up! Shut up! Varys commits to hiring Ganicus and the gladiators of Batiatus to operate at his games. And so while Oenomaus and Melita and Ganicus are all very sullen, they've all had very rough days for various reasons. Gaia, Xena, and Batiatus just go and have another orgy, and that's how the episode ends.
Got to throw in some orginess in
Of
here.
course.
There's not a whole lot of pleasant nudity in this episode. I feel like they had to throw that in at the very end to be like, we got to give the people something here.
Yeah.
I like the moment when this is before Crixus. Yeah, it has to have been before Crixus and Ganicus sort of fight, where Crixus is kind of creeping in the shadows as Ganicus is walking back and like kind of jumps him a little bit. And Ganicus is, throws him up against the wall. He's like, "Don't you talk to me until you get like the mark of the Brotherhood," essentially. And then Crixus asks sort of, he's like, "I don't care about that. I just want to know how to become a champion." And Ganicus is like, "Never fucking lose." I was like, that's such a great line. He's like, never
Walks
fucking
away.
lose. Yeah, and it's just and I love the fight between him and Crix. He starts kicking Crixus's ass at first. Like he is literally kicking his ass. But you don't quite know. It's like, is it just because he was super cocky when he's fighting Crixus? Because Crixus is essentially a nobody at this point in time. Is it just that he was so cocky and that's what allowed Crixus to sort of get some hits in on him and push him a little bit? Or was it actually Crixus's skill set? I'm going to go with skill set.
A little column A, a little column B. Like Ganicus was fucking around. He wasn't taking it seriously. He didn't realize that Crixus had gotten, pretty okay at this, and so Crixus catches him sleeping. Yeah, more or less, to use a phrase, and like that kind of takes Ganicus back a little bit. It's like, oh, what the fuck's happening here? And, so a little column A, little column B. Crixus got better than Ganicus realized, but ultimately Ganicus was just fucking around. Had he went
Yeah.
in there like this asshole was going to die, like let's suppose hypothetically, Crixus had said, or he was super cocky Crixus already, even though he hadn't earned it and was like talking mad shit. I believe Ganicus would have just killed him in like 3 seconds flat. But again, he column A, column B, he was fucking around, and then Crixus legitimately got the better of him because he wasn't paying attention.
And we
There's
should
a
also point out that Crixus only survives because Gaia says, let him live, because she wants to fuck him.
Gaia
They've
wants to
established
fuck
that pretty
all of the
clearly.
gladiators. I also wanted to
Yeah.
bring up there's a compared to everything else, this is a very minor plot point. But there's a lot of animosity towards or between Gaia and Batiatus throughout the episode, and eventually, of course, they have an orgy, so you assume that they're on good terms again. But Batiatus is trying to get Varys to hire him for his games. Meanwhile, Gaia is interested in Varys because Varys is single and rich, and so she's trying to worm tongue him into kind of setting her up. And so Batiatus, there's multiple times where it seems like, all right, Batiatus is going to go in for the kill. It's like, now is my time to get Varys to commit to hiring Ganicus, and Gaia like shuts him down. It's like, no, 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 it's not ready yet. And then she continues to try to be the focus of Varys's attention. But and it looks like these two are going to have a massive fallout, is what it's kind of building to. Uh, but then at the end, they everything works out. So now they're good fuck buddies again, along with Xena.
Yeah, and you don't really know, like, this Gaia character. She comes across as slimy, right? Like she's conniving and she's got ulterior motives for everything that
There's
she's doing.
always got to be something in it for her. Like even in the first
Yeah.
episode, when she ran into Xena and she's like, "Oh, yeah, we're such good friends. Yes, I've missed you for so long. Hey, can I crash on your couch for a little bit?"
Drink
Yeah.
all of your wine. Can we maybe do some opium? Come on, man. Come on.
She's just like, come on, take your top off. Everyone wants to see Xena's boobs. Yeah, it'll be great. It'll be fine. Smoke some of this. Um, yeah, I
And she
think
was
that,
correct. It was
yeah,
great, and it was fine.
yeah, it was fine. Totally fine with it. Ronan, your overall thoughts on this episode. How do you feel about Missio?
This is a very good episode. Has mentioned before. This is also very important, story wise for the entire, because this is the moment a lot of things get set up. This is the moment where we see Batiatus starting to plan murders and get very conniving and devious, which spoilers, that becomes a thing he does on the regular throughout the rest of the show, throughout the rest of his time. And this is the first instance of that. This is where this is where that part of his side was born. This is where he starts to use gladiators as his hitman and as his bodyguards. Because his original bodyguard dies, like a bitch, and so he's like, no, 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 no. I have a whole ludus full of gladiators, like death machines down there. I'm just going to take one of them with me, and that's what he does now. This is the birth of Asher. Has his essentially his shadow broker. The guy who gets him all the information and does all the dirt and all the underhanded stuff in the house. All the shit gets set up in this episode. So this is a very important episode throughout the rest of the show.
And we should point out that Asher, at this point in the timeline, he still really wants to be a gladiator. So, like, he's doing everything that Batiatus tells him that he needs to do because he feels like, okay, that's going to get me, the mark so that I can then become a gladiator and have respect from all of my fellow brothers in arms here, so to speak. And I think this is like the moment, because I'm going to have to watch, obviously, the rest of the episodes here, but I don't think Asher ever gets respect from anybody,
No,
No,
precisely because
no,
of this,
absolutely not.
because he didn't earn anything, right? And then that's what he starts becoming. Eventually things happen to him that causes problems, but yeah, he's a kind of a good dude. I mean, we see him stab a guy in the throat, which is pretty cold hearted, but it's like at this point he's kind of an okay guy. He's
Well,
not
you
like
bring that
evil
up.
guy.
Like, how many problems in this show, how many personal conflicts in this show could be avoided if people were just just like a smidge less shitty to each other?
yeah, this is a toxic masculinity shown in shown at its fullest, because has mentioned, like as we were mentioning, Asher gets the mark for doing this basically assassination job for Batiatus, and like as far as Batiatus goes, yeah, he's got the marks, whatever. Yeah, he's a gladiator now. But the rest of the boys down in the locker room, they just see this as like the manager putting his son in a prime position in the lineup.
It's like someone who doesn't deserve it getting an immediate push in WWE.
Yeah, yeah, and Asher didn't ask for any of this and didn't realize that this was going to happen. He's got the mark, and he's like, "Yeah, this is I'm in now." He hasn't realized, he's just royally been set up for failure by Batiatus. Like Batiatus literally fucks him over here, and so because of this, we'll get into it later on, because I know how he responds to this. This is the birth of also evil plotting Asher here, because of him getting the mark. The other gladiators don't respect him, and thus they create kind of their own worst enemy in this, because so many headaches get formed because of all. This is an important episode because all the bad things start right here.
Yeah. Steve, your thoughts on this episode?
Loved it. This Batiatus once again steals the show, and I think I mentioned last episode that even though I understand that Batiatus is a complete piece of shit, I fucking love him and I fucking root for him up to a point. And this episode is a great example of the dichotomy of Steve's feelings towards Batiatus, because he fucks over Vedius. He completely he steals everything that Vedius wanted in this episode. Batiatus fucking schemed and he stole it, and it's fucking great, and I loved it. And then he abuses the shit out of Ganicus and Melita, and I hate him a little bit.
Well, it's like
Yeah.
we get behind a smart villain. Yeah, that's like it's the Die Hard thing. It's like why do we like Hans Gruber? Because he's a fucking smart villain, and his plan works almost flawlessly. And it's like same sort of thing. Batiatus, smart villain. Audience can get behind a smart character.
Batiatus, not only that, but he's so damn charming and likable. Similar, like I like your example of Hans Gruber. Hans Gruber, Alan Rickman, charming as fuck in that movie. I mean, you just kind of like him. You're like, okay, he's doing a lot of bad shit, but man, I just like this guy. I'd like to go have a beer with this guy or something. And Batiatus the same way. I also believe that we haven't talked a lot about Xena in these two episodes, but you start to sort of see. I mean, Xena's really learning how to manipulate things through Gaia. I think it's becoming very clear as we go on that she learns everything that she does in future episodes from her friend Gaia, who's probably the most toxic element that could have been put into
Xena's
any of this
real
house.
innocent in the first
Yes.
few episodes of this.
Yeah. She's super innocent, and then she just turns and slowly turns evil. And we'll see the moment later on in this series when she fully turns evil. And then you sort of see that power couple, like we were mentioning, the two of them together, trying to dominate the Roman world.
Yeah, that's it. Everything bad starts here. This is the most important episode of the entire show because every bad element that gets set up, the only missing ingredient for the rest of like all the bad shit is the introduction of Spartacus himself. But that doesn't happen in this. Obviously, that doesn't happen in this prequel show. But that's the last key ingredient for like to finally set off the powder keg that is planted here. Like this is the first time they start using like the gladiators basically for more or less for like sex toys for like Roman politicians who come into town, like like you mentioned Lucretia. Like this is when she starts to become this kind of plotting character. Everything starts in this episode.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you sort of see these gladiators, at least in this episode, when Batiatus sort of puts them in this position, they have no idea they're going to be put in this position. And you might be thinking like, oh, well, they're slaves. Haven't they done this before? But no, because they've firmly established that at least the ludus that Batiatus is running, there's no fame or anything. Like nobody's coming to his ludus to partake in the pleasures of that, right? I mean, he's a nobody. Like they don't have any. They don't. Their slaves aren't being forced to do any of this stuff. Now, maybe Batiatus's father, who we may meet coming up soon, he might have done stuff back in the day when he was running it. But in terms of how the show frames it, Batiatus and Xena are just kind of like, very low on the totem pole. And so when their slaves are sort of forced to do this by rich people who are now showing up at their ludus, it's shocking to them, right? Because you can almost get this sort of sense that Xena really cares for, like Melita, for example. You get the sense that a lot of these people care for each other in some way, shape, or form, but then it's like, but you're still a slave, right? You still have to do what I want you to do in order to get more power and fame and glory for myself. So, not only are the gladiators wanting to fight for power and glory and women and all of that, but Batiatus is doing that as well. and Xena to a certain extent. They are trying to do what they need to do in order to attain fame, glory within the upper society in ancient Roman circles. So it's fascinating. And this show does such a great job, in my opinion, of sort of balancing that kind of stuff and then just hitting you with like a left hook. You're like, oh no, don't do this. Xena, please say something. Say something. Like, get another slave. And they don't say a word. They just do it. go to town. And it's disturbing. And it's, yeah, it's just great. It's great drama is what it is. It's really great.
Agreed. Do we have anything else to say about this?
I have nothing else.
We are all in agreement this is a fantastic, if not disturbing, episode.
Yeah, and it gets more and more disturbing. We haven't even talked about that weird little worm tonguing that Gaia is doing to that other slave, right? Like the virgin slaves. Remember, she keeps telling that other slave, "Oh yeah, you want you want Crixus, don't you?" And it's like things get more and more disturbing as we go along in this show.
Yep.
So yeah, stay tuned for that, I suppose. Thanks, everyone. You've made it through episode 2 of a 39-episode series here on Outpost Unknown. Because I looked it up, there are 39 episodes of this show. So we are 2 in. We got 37 more. I don't know how many more weeks that is. But stay tuned next week. Next Thursday, I'm just releasing these on Thursdays. So next Thursday, we will have episode 3 of Gods of the Arena. We're a third of the way through this season already. Isn't that crazy? So there's only 4 more episodes of this, and then we'll get into Spartacus. So thanks, everyone. Have a great night.